haben schon ein bisschen über eine hebräische Literatur gesprochen. Wir schauen uns jetzt mal an, was wir hier
Alright, so some of this probably is already familiar, but since we are doing more Hebrew poetry this week, it's probably good to be reminded.
Manches davon wird euch dann bekannt vorkommen, aber da wir ja auch diese Woche die hebräische Literatur betrachten, es ist gut, wenn wir das nochmal wiederholen.
Shall we only read in English and not translate? Is that okay? Can you guys follow along? So if you read it, then everybody understands, right?
Wenn man mitliest, ist das vielleicht einfacher. If you have questions, of course, you can still ask.
Right, yeah. If you don't understand a word, let me know.
Even if you're not German speaking, you can still ask questions.
That's right. Hebrew poetry. What is Hebrew? No, okay. Alright. So, surprisingly, about 1/3 of the Bible is poetry. Psalms, Proverbs, and the Song of Solomon are easily identified as poetry. However, in the Old Testament, the only books that do not have any Hebrew poetry are Leviticus, Ruth, Ezra, Esther, Haggai, and Malachi. The Revised Standard Version of the Bible, that's in English of course, the Revised Standard Version of the Bible was the first English edition to put all the Old Testament poetic passages in a distinctive form to show that they were poetry. Basically what they're saying is you'll have indented text, like this is historical narrative, it's formatted in a way that looks like poetry. Yeah, even so, because we can't tell, but Hebrew scholars, when they look at the Hebrew, they can decide, okay, this is poetic, this is poetry, and this is like historical narrative. Yeah, like images, words, pictures. And this one is similar to our poetry and songs. Like our poetry, the author paints a picture with words to describe the situation they are going through or the emotion they are feeling. He uses figure of speech to assist him in this. The first step is to see the word picture being communicated. The first step is to see the word picture being communicated. You need to use imagination, your imagination. What connotation go with that picture? Are they good or bad? What emotional overtones does it communicate? So basically it talks about trying to visualize, okay, what you're reading. The second step is to interpret that connotation. In light of the whole psalm, what was the author trying to communicate? Now, an example is a shepherd. It says in Psalm 23, a shepherd, we are the sheep. It looks like a little bit distorted, this verse, but anyway. He is the shepherd, we are the sheep, green pastures and still waters. Oh, I think it probably summarizes all of the 3 verses. Yeah? And then the shepherd, who would the shepherd be? We know the Psalm 23. Who is the shepherd? The Lord. The Lord is my shepherd. We are the sheep. Yeah? So the sheep would be a metaphor. Yeah? So is the shepherd. Okay, so both shepherd and sheep are metaphors that illuminates, that visualizes who the Lord is and how he acts towards us, his sheep. The second one talks about lying in the midst of lions. Now, lying in the midst of lions, that's not very good. That's dangerous. Okay, but maybe the imagery that comes to mind is Daniel that was thrown in the den of lions, and he was very safe and secure. Now, it's not in the handout, but in the previous verse, it talks about God will save. It says God will save me from enemies, those that are against me. In verse 3, yeah, God will save me from enemies. He will save me from those that are against me. And then I read, I'm lying in the midst of lions. It speaks of Daniel being among lions. Even among lions, I am secure. I can still experience peace, even if I'm in the midst of these trying circumstances. Yeah? And then we go to the next page. A figure of speech. The main way the author is going to communicate his word picture and emotions, the main way the author is going to communicate his words, pictures and emotions is through figure of speech. When you have identified a FOS, do not stop there, but ask what the author is communicating through it. A figure of speech is a literary mode of expression in which words are used out of their literal sense to suggest a picture or image. It is a form of expression in which words are intentionally used in other than a plain or literal way, so as to produce a fresh, vivid or poetic effect. Alright, so obviously when you are reading the text, we need to, some things are literal, some things are figurative. If you take everything literal, then you're going to go make some weird interpretations. So we need to remember the type of literature we are dealing with. We need to remind ourselves maybe, oh, this is poetry. Yeah? And so we have many words, many, there's a lot of figure of speech, and some of the types of figure of speech are the following. A simile. That's a direct comparison of two things that are essentially different, and characterized by the use of like, as, and so.
Auf Deutsch habe ich die Übersetzung Vergleich gefunden. Könnt ihr euch zuschreiben.
Okay. And then so in Matthew 23:27 says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like," so the word like is like, indicates a simile, "you are like whitewashed tombs." Now a metaphor is like a simile, but it is indirect. There is no connective, there is no word like as, so, or like. So an indirect, and I'm now reading, an indirect comparison of two things asserts that one thing is another, substitution of the name of one thing for another. Like a simile, but the connective of like, as, and so are left out. And so we have Matthew chapter 5 verse 13, "You are the salt of the earth." Jesus doesn't say you are like the salt of the earth. He says you are the salt of the earth. And therefore it is a metaphor. Rhetorical question. These are questions posed for which the author doesn't expect or wait for an answer. You will know them by their fruit. Are grapes gathered from thorns or figs from thistles? The obvious answer is no, duh. In America we would say duh, okay? So it's obvious, so, but it is also rhetorical, so it's not meant to answer because he's just using it as a way of making a point. Anthropomorphism, the practice of describing God in human terms, as if he has hands, feet, or face. Chapter,
Ich glaube, auf Deutsch würde man es genauso als Anthropomorphismus, und es bedeutet, dass man sagt, etwas hat eine menschenähnliche Gestalt.
Yeah, so John 10:29, "What my Father has given me is greater than all else, and no one can snatch it out of the Father's hand." So describing God as a Father, having hands. Anthropomorphism. Personification. The attribution of life or human qualities, the attribution of light or human qualities to inanimate objects. The representation of an object as if it were a person. The land vomits out its inhabitants. Okay, people vomit. Okay, but now we have given the land a human quality. Yeah? Hyperbole, exaggeration, not with the intent to deceive, but to emphasize and intensify an expression or impression. Yeah? Matthew 5:29, "If your right hand causes you to sin, tear it out." Well, if you would do that literally, then we're probably all blind. Okay? So it's a hyperbole. Okay? So, exercise. In the next few minutes, I want you to read, can you identify the figure of speech and then name them? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verses, and you already know the definitions of these figure of speech, go identify them. I give you 5 minutes. Okay, are we done? Okay, John chapter 10 verse 9. What figure of speech is used?
Metaphor.
Metaphor?
Yeah.
Is that what you say?
Yeah.
Good. Galatians 4 verse 15.
Parabel.
Huh?
Parabel?
Hyperbole. Is that what you say? Yeah, hyperbole. Revelation 1:14. Who wants to say? Huh? Simile. 1 Corinthians 1:13. Rhetorical. Leviticus 18:25. Yeah, I already did that. I just realized I should find another one. Matthew 18:10. Anthropomorphism, I know, it's very hard. I also have to practice anthropomorphism. And sometimes I probably still put the accent wrong. But anyway, let's go to the next page, parallelism. Now parallelism says not similar to our poetry and songs. So whereas figure of speech was similar, now we have something that is not similar. So now we have to watch out a little bit more because we are not so used to this. So what's parallelism? Parallelism. The unique structure of Hebrew poetry is parallelism. In Western literature, meter and rhyme characterize poetry. In Hebrew poetry, meter and rhyme are for the most part absent. They're not there. Instead, Hebrew poetry's distinguishing feature is parallelism, which is balancing of thought against thought and words against words. So it's like rhyming thought against thought. Yeah, it's like a meaning of a word with another meaning, with another word with the same meaning. Yeah, so it's just like balancing of thought, rhyming of ideas. So we have synonymous parallelism, and the thought of the second line repeats what has been said in the first, and therefore both lines mean the same. Okay, so it's a repeat. But the thought is repeated. Different words are used. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims His handiwork. So the heavens and the firmament is parallel, the telling and the proclaiming is parallel, the glory of God and the handiwork is parallel. Now we have antithetic parallelism. The second line states the truth of the first line in a contrasting way, one connected by the word but. Psalm 90 verse 6, in the morning it flourishes and it is renewed. In the evening, that's the opposite, the contrast, it fades and withers. Then we have synthetic parallelism. The second line adds to the first, leading to a logical conclusion. Usually you can ask why or what is the result. Psalm 90:12. So teach us to number our days. Why? Okay, that's what we think of, right? Picture that in your mind. Did you say why? That we may get a heart of wisdom. Yeah, so it's a continuation. Emblematic parallelism. One line is a literal statement followed by a second which is figurative. So we have, for as the heavens are high, they are high above the earth, so great is his steadfast love towards those who fear him. Okay, that is figurative. Climatic parallelism merges synonymous and synthetic parallelism. There is a repetition and development of a concept. It is like stair-like. Ascribe to the Lord, O heavenly beings, then it's repeated. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory of his name. Worship the Lord in his holy array. Okay, I give you a few more minutes. You got 2, 4, 6 verses. Identify the parallelism. Okay. Habakkuk 1 verse 4. Which one is it? Synthetic. Very good. Micah, somebody else. Micah 4 verse 5. What is that? Antithetic? Yeah, very good. Psalm 49 verse 1. Somebody else. What is that?
Synonymous.
Huh?
Synonymous.
Synonymous? Yeah. Okay. Proverbs 15:1.
Anti.
Yeah, antithetic. Very good. Song of Solomon 2:2. Huh?
Emblematic.
Emblematic. And Psalm 55:6. Somebody else? Who hasn't spoken yet?
Climatic?
Climatic? Climactic, you say?
Yeah, climatic.
Oh, that I had wings like a dove, I would fly away and be at rest. You say climactic? Where is climactic? Oh, climactic right there, yeah. You know what, that could be too. I have synthetic because I was thinking figure of speech.
Maybe for climactic it would have to be developed a little bit further. You
Yeah.
have to keep going and be like, I would rest in the mountains, or in the
Would be
mountains.
more star-like.
I
Huh?
find my peace or something. It would have to be a bit longer, I think.
So maybe synthetic is. Okay. Sometimes I just say, oh, it's figure of speech, but I don't know which one. Okay, last one. Now we do interpretation. Okay. Can you interpret the figure of speech? So observe the figure of speech. Now the figure of speech is the one in bold. Yeah. Right underneath what type of figure of speech is used, and then on the right, write down your interpretation. Interpret what the author was trying to communicate. I'll give you 5 minutes. I know it's only overview, don't get frustrated. This booklet will be yours, so you can later explore further, yeah? Maybe I'll give you a few more than 5 minutes. Yeah?
6 minutes.
6 minutes, yeah. I'm generous too.
There are multiple ones.
Huh?
In one, there are multiple figures of speech.
If you see more than one, write them down. Sometimes it has multiple, correct. We can talk about it together too, so don't worry too much about the interpretation if you think you ran out of time. Just identify the figure of speech and then we'll just talk it through together. Okay. Why don't we, don't worry if you're not finished. I realize it's a lot of reading and thinking. We can do this together as well. So, Nahum 1 verse 3, his way is in whirlwind and storm, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. What kind of figure of speech? Metaphor. Okay. His way is, because we don't have the lag in it. Okay, it is a metaphor, but it's also anthropomorphism. So both are fine. Yeah. How would you interpret this? What is going on here? What is being pictured? This one is not so easy, okay? But you picture a whirlwind and storm, like a dust, so picture dust. And it's talking about God, and all that I see is but like dust on God's feet. Yeah, it says, and the clouds are the dust of his feet. Picture a horse, you're riding a horse, and you stir up a lot of dust. That's like God riding a horse in the heavenlies. And the clouds is actually the dust from his feet. Or the horse's feet in that case. Yeah? Something like that. You just try to visualize.
So what does that say about God?
What is it? Yeah, what does it say about God?
God is great and big.
Huh?
God is great and high.
Yeah. And he's on the move. Yeah? Or he's coming back. Jesus is coming back. Or he's going to war. So probably you have to look more in context of the rest, and maybe you can even do more interpretation. What do you think?
Yeah, right. I like the idea of God is on the move. He's
Uh-huh.
moving. And yeah, he's so amazingly great that what seems big to us is just
Right.
not even noticeable to him almost.
Yeah. 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 Psalm 62:7. On God rests my salvation and my glory. My mighty rock, my refuge is God. So what's the figure of speech?